Remember those crappy Tiger handheld electronic games that we had back in the 90s because, well, we were poor? Well, for some reason, they're coming back in 2020. Sony has pulled out of PAX East this year, and I gotta sit here and question, is something deeper going on with Sony right now? And finally, the Animal Crossing Direct has finally happened. We got a bunch of information on the game, and I want to share my thoughts on it. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's jump into the world of video game news and see what's going on. So yes, the start of this video was not a joke. For some strange reason, Tiger handhelds are coming back in 2020. Now, if you were a poor kid in the 90s, like many of us were, who loved video games, but your parents wouldn't buy you video games all that often, these Tiger handhelds were essential to your lifestyle. Yes, they were cheap. Yes, the games themselves absolutely sucked, but there was just something cool about seeing your favorite franchises in a handheld game, something that your parents wouldn't mind picking up because it was much cheaper than buying an actual video game was. They were a fraction of the price. And yes, the quality of the games was nothing like you would get on the consoles, but at that time, that was all you had. You didn't have cool things like cell phones to play games on. We were poor. We had to make do. Get off my damn lawn. But no, there's definitely some sort of nostalgia for these Tiger handhelds. I've actually looked them up over the years. I've kind of wanted to buy some of these again, but for some reason, Hasbro is bringing back the Tiger handheld electronics. Now, they will be releasing in fall of 2020, and they are of the old games that we actually grew up playing. So I think that's really cool. They've so far announced 4 games that are coming out for the Hasbro line of Tiger handheld electronics. So we've got The Little Mermaid, we have Transformers Generation 2, we have X-Men Project X, and we have Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Now, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is obviously the most interesting of all of them because ever since Michael Jackson passed away, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 has never been re-released in any way, shape, or form, being the Sega Genesis version of the game. Now, obviously, Michael Jackson had involvement with the soundtrack to Sonic the Hedgehog 3 on the Genesis, so that game has just been sort of tied up in limbo. It's probably tied up in his legal estate and all of those sorts of things. So now Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is actually getting a re-release for the first time since his passing. It's just a version of the game that he had absolutely nothing to do with. Now, these will be priced at $14.99 a piece. You do have to use 2 AA batteries, and Hasbro did say that it's going to be very indicative of the original releases of these games. Now, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any sorts of adjustments done to these games to make them, I don't know, actually playable and sort of fun. But the cool thing about Tiger handheld electronics that I always enjoyed wasn't necessarily the games themselves, it was the artwork that was on the system. Like, that artwork was just so very well done, and you could see here in the pictures that the artwork is exactly replicated like it was back into the 90s. And considering these are just $15 a piece, I probably will pick up some of these. I'm not going to review them or anything like that because, like I said, the gameplay on these leaves a lot to be desired, but I always like the collectability aspect of these. I'll probably buy a few of these and just keep them in the original packaging because it's cool. It's something different. It's something nostalgic, and nostalgia is a hell of a drug. So let me know in the comments section down below what you think about Tiger handhelds coming back in 2020, and do you foresee them doing different franchises that maybe weren't originally released if these end up being popular? I think a lot of, younger kids are going to be like, what the hell is this crap? But us old men, I think we're going to enjoy these. Next up, we're going to put on our tinfoil hats for a little bit because I don't know, man. I think something is going on with Sony. When you look at the timeline of events, things have been very strange for Sony starting around summer of 2019. A lot of things have changed at Sony, and now Sony has decided to not go to PAX East. But before we start talking about why Sony is not attending PAX East, I kind of want to look at the timeline of events. So really, a lot of this started when Shawn Layden just randomly left Sony. There was no hubbub over it. He just left. There was nothing really talked about. A simple tweet went out, and we never got the full story about why Shawn Layden left Sony. Obviously, he led them into an era of prominence with different systems throughout the years, so you would think that he would want to stay with the company. Now, maybe he wanted to move on to other projects, but both Shawn Layden and Sony have been very quiet ever since he departed. Now, The Last of Us 2 was a game that, of course, got a release date. Everyone was looking forward to it, and then a month later, they were like, oh, no, you know what, we're gonna have to delay the game again. Obviously, not a huge deal. You want the game to be as good as possible, but it seems strange that they would announce a release date and then a month later changed the release date. So what happened with that? What is going on? Of course, Sony was not at E3 2019, and they also announced that they will not be at E3 2020. Now, obviously, E3 is drastically changing, and a lot of people are probably starting to look at E3 in a different sort of light, but still, it's just accumulation of events that makes the whole thing very strange. And then, of course, in February, we got information on the PlayStation 5. Well, kind of. They said that, hey, we're going to talk about the PlayStation 5 at some point, but not quite yet. And a lot of people were expecting them to talk about the PlayStation 5 in the month of February because it just kind of made sense. Of course, the Xbox Series X was shown off at the Game Awards 2019. Everyone is talking about the Xbox Series X. We saw the system itself. We saw games running on the system. So there's a lot more to digest when it comes to the Xbox Series X than there is with the PlayStation 5. There's definitely a whole hell of a lot of mystery. Well, yesterday, Sony announced 10 days before PAX East 2020 that they would not be attending the event. And a lot of people are questioning, well, why is that? Now, Sony did give a statement that says the following. Today, Sony Interactive Entertainment made the decision to cancel its participation at PAX East in Boston this year due to increasing concerns related to coronavirus. We felt this was the safest option as the situation is changing daily. We are disappointed to cancel our participation in this event, but the health and safety of our global workforce is our highest concern. Now, obviously, that's a very respectable decision. You want the safety and health of your workers to be of the utmost importance with your company, but it's sort of the accumulation of events and the timing of everything that just has me thinking, you know, this is kind of strange. It's not like Boston is under quarantine or anything like that. Yes, there was an isolated incident of the coronavirus that was documented in Boston, but it's not like widespread panic. I actually asked people that I know that live in Boston, both in personal life and on my Facebook page, and I was like, yo, is, you know, Boston under quarantine or something? And everyone was like, no, we're good here. It just seems very strange to me, especially as someone who worked in the medical profession for like 11 to 12 years before I started doing this YouTube thing. I look at something like the flu, which took about 61,000 lives in the 2018 to 2019 flu season, yet people aren't not going to conventions because of the flu. Every con that I've ever gone to, I've gotten what is called con crud or con flu, where you basically get sick because you're surrounded by a bunch of different people. Now, obviously, the coronavirus is much more advanced than your standard flu, but it just seems like a weird thing. I kind of have my tinfoil hat on here, and it could be something just as simple as what Sony said it was. But just the accumulation of events kind of leads me to believe that maybe something is happening behind the scenes with Sony and the PlayStation brand right now. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of things have been happening, and now this is just yet another piece of the puzzle that is just a strange puzzle that I'm not quite sure when we're going to solve this puzzle. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think about this, though. And finally, put your pitchforks down, people, because the Animal Crossing Direct has come. We have gotten the Animal Crossing Direct. We have gotten the information we have been asking for with the Animal Crossing Direct. And honestly, most of it was pretty good looking at the Animal Crossing Direct. So I want to give you guys my thoughts on it. Now, one thing I was impressed with was just the amount of stuff that they've seen to add into the Animal Crossing New Horizons game for the Nintendo Switch. There's a ton of different clothing options. You can actually buy a house for your island as well, so you're not just restricted to your tent, and of course you can customize that house. They've actually added in new ways to traverse areas and sort of build up areas as well. There's ladders to climb to reach higher places. You could build bridges, slopes, and paths, so you can really sort of customize your town to make it look the way you want. You can also change the environment by adding new ground or removing edges and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. It's going to add a lot of customization to the game, and when you look at how games like Animal Crossing have evolved over the years, I think this is a very good evolution for the series. There's going to be additional facilities such as the museum and shops and a campground that will be coming eventually, and the DIY customization just looks absolutely awesome. There's a bunch of different workshops you could do, and you can really customize just so much stuff in this game to really make this island sort of your island. Of course, there's online play where you could play with friends. They've actually gotten rid of the friend code situation. You could simply put a password on a game that you are playing online, and if your friends have that password, they can add it in there and jump in there. Or if you just want to play with some random people, you could give those random people your password. So I think that's another cool feature as well. And one thing that I do like is how they've changed the timed events in the game. Now, if you've ever played an Animal Crossing game, I played the GameCube and the DS version to absolute death, you know that certain events happen at certain times within the game, but all of that was being used with in-game clocks and system clocks from those systems. So technically, you could take your GameCube system and adjust the date and time to Christmas Day, and then it would be Christmas Day in your Animal Animal Crossing, even though it's July 1st in the real world. So what they've done is they've actually changed that, so now that the events will only be added on the actual days that they happen. So utilizing an online system in order to add in these events so that time travelers can't really time travel in the game anymore. So I think that's a really cool thing. I think the graphics definitely look a lot better than previous Animal Crossing games. There's a lot more animations and characters' faces. I think the world itself looks really nice, and I think they've just done a really solid job with this game. It looks like a proper Animal Crossing evolution, and it looks like a thing that Animal Crossing fans are really going to enjoy. Now, of course, there are no cloud saves in the game, and we talked about a couple weeks ago on the channel how Nintendo was kind of quiet about how you're going to be able to recover your data if you can recover your data. Well, they announced today that if your Nintendo Switch is damaged or you lose your Nintendo Switch, you will be able to access your save data from Animal Crossing one time and one time only. And that, of course, is if you have the Nintendo Switch Online service. So if anything happens to your Nintendo Switch beyond that one time, unfortunately, you're just kind of shit out of luck, which is kind of a questionable decision. I'm not quite sure what Nintendo's reasoning is behind that, but I guess it is what it is. So overall, I thought this was a really solid Animal Crossing New Horizons Nintendo Direct. I thought they did a great job presenting the information. So you would think that I'm going to buy this game on day one, right? I'm not. This Animal Crossing Direct actually did the complete opposite for me. It made me realize something, that I'm just not interested in Animal Crossing anymore. I think the game itself looks spectacular. I think the game itself looks really fun, but I just feel like I've moved on from this. I've moved on from games like Animal Crossing. They just really don't interest me anymore. There was nothing that really sort of grabbed me and said, hey, I need to play this game with Animal Crossing New Horizons. I need to get back into the world of Animal Crossing. I think Animal Crossing, for me personally, is just kind of best left in the past. Like, I had so many fond memories of playing the game on the GameCube, so many fond memories of playing the DS game, especially. That was where I spent so much time playing that DS version of the game, and I feel like that was sort of the peak of the series for me. Obviously, things like your gaming tastes change over the years. You don't really like all the same games that you liked, 5 years ago or something like that. Looking at a game for me personally, Resident Evil 5, I wasn't a huge fan of that game when it first came out, but I recently just played it and beat it, and I really enjoyed it a lot more than I did 10 years ago or something. Not everything in life is really necessarily for you. The world doesn't revolve around you, even though you like to think it does. Not every video game that ever gets released is a game that's going to be for you. Not every YouTube video is going to be a video that you want to watch. It just comes down to your personal preference. Things change and your tastes change. So Animal Crossing New Horizons, I think, looks like a fantastic game, but it's definitely not a game that's going to be for me. Alright, so that is going to do it for today's video. We had some retro madness, we have a tinfoil hat Sony conspiracy, and we have a lot of Animal Crossing stuff to talk about. So let me know in the comments section down below what you think of everything. Are you going to be picking up any of these Hasbro Tiger electronic handhelds? What is going on with Sony? Is it something as simple as they said, or is there something deeper? And what did you think about the Animal Crossing New Horizons Nintendo Direct? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel. We actually had 2 videos up yesterday, the Warface review and me looking at NES and Super NES online Switch games, and well, that was a really weird video. And as always, guys, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.